My first question to you is, can you say and spell your first and last name and your title to the city?
Well, Nathaniel Glover, Nathanniel, Glover, Glover. And of course, right now, I am just a citizen.
But who are you to Jacksonville?
Well, I mean, people will probably know me as, career law enforcement officer, former sheriff, historical sheriff in this city and in the state, of course, and also former president of an HBCU, which is my alma mater, Edward Waters College, which is now Edward Waters University.
So, what does Black history mean to you?
Well, I think Black history is a recognition of the challenge of African Americans. And I think it's important that we recognize it, but not only recognize it, but celebrate it. I think when you look at the younger African Americans, they need to know their history, because they only know if you don't at least commemorate or make them aware of where they came from and the difficulty in being where they are, then I think we will lose some of those students who might strive harder to be something special than just being here.
I want to take you back to your first day in office here in Jacksonville as a sheriff. Tell me what that meant to you. Did you realize that you were making history at that point?
Yeah, it was clear that I was making history, because that was one of the things that was talked about the entire time that I was campaigning. And of course, that was one of the reasons that a number of people said it was futile for me to be running. And of course, there were others who said when I became what they would call a viable candidate, they worried that I wouldn't make it to the election. So they were just so afraid that something was going to happen to me. And I didn't know that until after, of course, I was elected. And so it was quite a big deal. And I think that it was one of those indicators in my mind that I had to get it right.
No room for mistakes?
I don't think I had any room for a mistake. Although nothing is perfect, when you reflect on some things, you might look back and say, I could have done that different. But I know that not only was I going to get it right, but I was not going to let the people down, because historically I was elected in the first primary. And that's a big deal in politics in this city. And that was done because people of color came out and voted with enthusiasm, but they were assisted with a whole lot of other white people. And I'm talking Republicans, Democrats, I'm talking Northsiders, Southsiders, rich and poor. So when I got that overwhelming support, I committed to myself that I was not going to let the citizens of Jacksonville down, which meant in some instances I had to make some decisions based on what was best for the constituency and not necessarily me or trying to appease some of my supporters or friends.
When it comes to that fear you spoke about, other people were worried for you, and you said you didn't know until after the fact. So what was it that was going through your mind? You didn't have time to be fearful because you had a job to do, or it didn't feel that way to you?
No, I am one of those individuals who have a high threshold when it comes to personal danger, and so and that happened because I had a traumatic event when I was 17 years old, and so I don't feel like that, you know, that I was in any personal danger. As a matter of fact, I had had a career in the sheriff's office where I had high-risk jobs. And being a hostage negotiator, and for years I was the only hostage negotiator in the whole department. I used to have to go in, talk to people who were threatening suicide, holding a gun to their head or something, and I would go in and talk to them face to face and talk them down. So in you know, and I've had guns pointed at me, and with the barrel of the guns 6 inches, maybe a feet, from my nose. And anyone in those two events, I just didn't feel like I was terrified. I felt like I had to keep it together and talk it down, and I was able to do it.
You talk about this traumatic thing that happened to you. Is this when you were confronted by those axe handlers?
Yes, and that's interesting because on that day, I was probably about as fearful as I could be. 17 years old, I was got off of work on Axe Handle Saturday here in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was surrounded by Ku Klux Klansmen and white supremacists with axe handles, and they were hitting me with the axe handles and that kind of thing. And I ran to a police officer, and he told me I better get out of town before they kill me. And I ran, and I ran because of the fact that I was afraid. The terror was overwhelming in my mind. And when I got home, I just cried. And I was not crying because they had hurt me with the axe handles. I was crying because they had terrorized me. They made me run away from a confrontation. They made me run away from a fight. And see, in my neighborhood, you didn't run away from a fight. You ran away from a fight, they call you a coward. And I didn't want anybody to know that I ran. And so at the end of the day, when I stopped crying, I said to myself, I would never run away from another fight. Would never run away from a challenge. I would never do something that I shouldn't do because I'm afraid, or not do something that I should have done because I was afraid. And I said this to myself, I would rather die first. And so that stuck with me from that day to this day. And I also have this kind of I'm going to say, convincing thought in my heart, and it's deep in my heart, that I don't think you leave this earth early, or you don't leave late. When your time comes, it's time. And I don't think you can talk it down and say, give me a few more weeks. You know, let me survive this one. You know, I don't think you can do that. And I really believe that in my heart.
When you look at the world today, we have social media, we have AI, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, right? Where do you think we're going? Do you think we're going in the right direction?
Well, it depends on when you talk about AI. I think we are going in the right direction. As a matter of fact, that's just improvements. You know, that's our history. When you look at this country, you know, cars are better than they were at one time. You know, even people in sports, they jump higher than they did in the future. And so you're going to have the AI in this country. You have robots doing a whole lot of things that we have people doing now. You got to adjust to that. And so, but when it comes to governing and it comes to race relations, there are a lot of people think that we're going back. I don't necessarily think we're going back. I think the challenges are different. I mean, we don't have to worry about selecting what water fountain we're going to drink out of going into any restaurant we want to, and I'm talking black folk. That's not, that road have been traveled. We're way beyond that now. But you see some things happening like I'm going to say the toxicity in government between Republicans and Democrats. Things that, you know, the two parties, sometimes I think they deviate from what's best for the citizens, and they just focus on each other. If one says yes, the other going to say no, no matter what the situation is. We got to get beyond that. You know, we were the envy of the world in our democracy. And then we had the situation in December where we had the Capitol storm by people who just, I'm going to say, breaking the law. I mean, storming the Capitol. And now there are countries around the world are saying,
It's a weakness.
yeah, we've kind of given up that status of being one of the top democratic countries in the world, and we got to fix that.
What is your most memorable moment that you believe helped you get to where you are today?
I'm going to say there were probably a number of them, but I'm going to say when I got an opportunity to access higher education when I was in school, because I was convinced that when I completed high school, that was going to be the end of my educational career. But I got an opportunity to get a scholarship to go to college from playing sports, and I think that's what turned my life around. I think that's the reason that I was hired to become a police officer, and that was one of the reasons that I was able to navigate my way through the upper levels of the command level throughout the police department and become sheriff. And I think that was the reason that I was ended up being a college president. So when you look at all of those significant events in my life, it was because of the basis of that education. And it's a strange way, the strange way it happened is the reason I put so much emphasis on it, because I wanted to drop out of high school. And my mother said if I was going to stay in that house, I was going to school. And I didn't think she was the coolest mom at that time. I mean, I had my other friends who had dropped out, and they seemed like they were doing pretty well. One of my friends had a car. One had always had a pocket full of money. And the other had a girlfriend. I have none of that. And I was going to school every morning. So they were kind of laughing at me, and I wanted to drop out. My mother stopped me, and I was able to play football for 1 year in high school. 1 year of football. And college coach came around and said, we're going to give you a full scholarship. That had to be divinely ordered. And the only reason I actually played football was because my brother was a stellar football player. As a matter of fact, he was so good they used to call him all-world. And of course, I was getting some of that recognition when I came behind him 5 years, same high school. And they were calling me Eugene Glover's brother. They called him Wop. They called me Little Wop. And I was getting all his glory. And until the day that they stopped giving me credit for being Eugene Glover's brother, they started to talk about me like, oh, that's Eugene Glover's brother, but he's sorry. And when they started calling me sorry, you know, you can't be amongst your kids, the kids in high school, and people calling you sorry. So I went and begged the coach to let me play football. And he said, you only have 1 more year, son. I said, please, my brother was Eugene Glover, and I just want to play. He allowed me to play 1 year, and I got a college scholarship. That had to be divine. That was the only way that I was going out for any sport, because you had to stay after school to practice. And I wanted to get out of there as soon as it was over. So that's what happened. And I just feel like there was a plan.
When you look at everything that has happened over the course of your life, do you ever get a chance to sit back and appreciate it?
Appreciate it. I recognize what happened, and I have dissected it. And I will say that along my life journey, every time I got to a crossroad where I didn't know which way to go or how I was going to move forward, the Lord always put somebody in my path. And they always brought the answer to the question or a solution to the problem. And I'm talking every time. So, with that in mind, I'm convinced that my journey was divinely ordered.
Are you proud of what you've accomplished?
I am.
Yeah.
I am very proud. And when I look back and I listen to what people say to me and said about me, sometimes I think they overstate it, but that was one of the main reasons I waited so long to write about my memoirs, was because I thought people was, to some degree, exaggerating my accomplishments and the urging of me writing a book, and I didn't for a long time, but I wish I had once I started to write it.
Let's talk about that book because it's very important. The most important thing that I would say about this book is it's not just you buying a book. This book, that the money is used, it's going back into the community.
Oh yes, I want to give young people an opportunity to access higher education, and because I'm convinced that there are many young people on the corners because they couldn't afford college. There are many people, young people, who had to settle for positions that if they had been able to access higher education could have been gifted performers, great politicians, brilliant surgeons, tremendously good and exceptional lawyers, if they had the opportunity. But the cost of higher education almost priced them out the market, and they end up settling. So I want to make certain that we somehow mitigate that.
I was reading pieces of your book, from what I can see. I think the most, when you talk about the experience of that confrontation of you coming up to that, and you said you would never run again, but then you ran to be the sheriff, right?
Yes.
And you say everything is a divine purpose. I hear this often. What's for you is going to be for you no matter what.
Yeah, but that came into play when people were trying to urge me to run for sheriff, and other people were saying that you had a tremendous career. And I was thinking, and they were saying clearly, what's going to happen? You are going to embarrass yourself by running for sheriff. They don't elect black sheriffs in Florida. They just don't. So you're going to get out here and run, and you're going to get a few votes from maybe your friends, and you're going to be the laughing stock of this city after having such a stellar career as a law enforcement officer. But see, again, it went back to what I said. If I don't do something because I was afraid to do it, then that's what would be difficult for me to live with. I'd rather do it, fail, and then when people laugh at me, I outlaugh them. And so that's my style. I'm going to do it, and if they laugh at me, I'll be making most of the jokes about it than they do, and keep going.
I like that. That's my style.
Yeah, that's my style, and it works for me, because if you are a person and you are successful at everything you do, you playing it safe. And you leaving something on the table that you could do higher, greater, and more important than all of those things, but you are only doing those things that you know how it's going to come out in the first place. Life is about ups and downs. You're going to have some successes, and you're going to have some failures. But you don't go too high when you have a success, and you don't go too low when you have a failure. You get up and you keep going. And let me tell you this, that failure is going to be sometime a lifelong lesson that's going to serve you even more than a success.
We do want to talk about work-life balance. It's not easy to run a city and be a president of a university and have a full-time family. How did you find that balance?
Well, one of the things that's important is when you talk about the infrastructure of where you come from, and that infrastructure is your family, and you got to be comfortable there, because if that's somehow a concern or disruptive entity, then it could be something that will hold you back or at least impede your progress. So I've had a family around me, and I'm talking wife, son, daughter, cousins, who always been supportive. And I mean, when I get on the phone and say, I need to do this, they all there, and that's a big deal. And the reason I think it's such a big deal is when I listen to other people about the internal mechanisms of other families, then I know how fortunate I am. Because
Have you seen them? Have you seen those other families out there?
sometimes we take things for granted, and we say, this is the way it should be. And it's almost like saying, I'm entitled to this. But in reality, and you listen to others, and you listen to what's going on, then you have a way of appreciating those things that's going on in your life. And that's the way I see it.
What do you like doing with your family?
Well, we just like hanging out and trying to catch each other doing something that they shouldn't have done or saying something they shouldn't have said, and pointing it out to the group. And so,
Like hobbies?
yeah, it's just one of those things where whatever we do, we enjoy it, and the reason we enjoy it is being together. And so my son is the social planner in the group, and anything social, get together, dinner, celebrating a significant event, he's the one that organized that, pulled it together, and I'll give him a 95 on that. I still
He
point
doesn't
it.
know.
Well, he knows he get a 95, but he's still working for the other 5%, and so, but I'm glad you asked me about that.
So what are your hobbies?
Well, my hobbies are teaching leadership. I have learned a lot about teaching leadership, and I have used leadership techniques that's been successful. And when I say successful, I don't mean to the extent that you work at something and you do it well enough, let's say not to get fired, but I'm talking about raising your head above the peer group. In law enforcement, I was able to reach a level where I was later voted into the Florida Law Enforcement Hall of Fame. When I was a college president, I was able to be nominated 2 years in a row, HBCU Male President of the Year. And when I was in college as a football player, I was selected to be the captain of the football team. Now, when you look at all of those things, you can't say that was an accident. The thing about it is, you have to find a way to do your job in a way and perform at a level where you raise your head above the peer group that's doing the same job. And the only way you're going to do that is to get the people who are working under your leadership to do their job at a level where it elevates you. When I was a detective sergeant, I had a squad of men, 6 detectives who I was in charge of, and they were burglary detectives. And they were clearing burglary cases 3 times the rate of the national average. And the sheriff, when he went out to speak to groups, he would be bragging on his burglary unit that was solving all of these burglary cases. And I was nominated and selected as Police Officer of the Year that year. You know how many burglars I put in jail? 0. And I got the recognition because I was the leader of them. So that's where I think you have to find a way to raise your head above the class.
My last question to you is for the young men and women who are going to be watching this story in February. We'll be celebrating Black History Month. What do you want them to know about your legacy that you hope continues to live long after you're gone?
Well, what I would hope that they remember is this. I came from a background where I lived in a neighborhood was the epitome of poverty in the city. I lived in a shotgun house, but I had parents who actually made certain that I did the right thing, and I did the right thing for the right reason. They certainly raised me in a way where I was denied certain things, and I was denied them because either they couldn't afford them or it was not in our best interest. And as a result of that, I went from poverty to a high level of achievement here in Jacksonville, Florida. Some say higher than anybody can expect. And the Duval County school system have adopted my memoir because it will be in the inventory of the school system because it's motivating, inspiring, and encouraging to young people, because I always believe you can do anything, but you have to put your mind to it, be committed to it, work hard at it, get up when you go down, and persevere, and you can accomplish it.
That's amazing. You good? All right. My mom always tells me you can and you will, right? You can and you will. Failure is not an option. And I was involved in this Media Federation workshop in Pittsburgh called the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation Journalism Workshop. At the age of 15, we learned confidence, awareness, and pride. And still to this day, since I was 15 years old, I use that going into meetings, offices, inspiring young kids, like, what would you want me to take away? So if you could tell someone something to take away from what you do in 3 words, what would they be?
The 3 words I would say: you can do it. That's actually 4, isn't it?
I love that.
What I would say, keep trying. That's only 2.
We're almost there.
Well, 3 words.
Just do it is Nike. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's next.
Yeah,
No,
just do it. Let me tell you something. People gonna tell you what you can do. You tell somebody you're going to do something, and if they can't do it, they can't see it. And too often, they will discourage you. But I'm telling you, the Lord put something in all of us, and we have to develop that. When I was a detective, if I had two witnesses who witnessed a crime, the first thing I did was separate them and interview them. And they will almost always tell you something different. They were looking at the same thing. Because that's who we are. We are individuals. We're going to see things different. We're going to feel stronger about some things that others don't even think is important. So be yourself and develop that gift that the Lord has put in you.